Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I am filming, as you can probably see, a list of kind of all my favourite ancient classics that are also really accessible. So I've had quite a lot of people over on my Bookstagram ask me what my favourite ancient classics are that are really accessible and what would be best for them as beginners to ancient classics to read. So I thought I'll come over here and make a quick video and just show you all some of my favourite ancient classics. So for those that don't know me, I am in my second year of an ancient history degree in the UK. I wanted to go do a master's and PhD, probably specialising in Greek literature. I do still really like Roman literature though, and I have a couple of Roman literature recs in here, but it's mostly kind of Greek literature and history because, I mean, it's my favourite. I have got, as you can see behind me, it's a makeshift shelf, okay, because I'm a uni student and my accommodation didn't offer bookshelf units and I'm too cheap to buy one, so they're there. They look really ugly though, so I do really want to buy a bookshelf, but student life. So yeah, all of these are mainly kind of Greek literature, some of Roman literature, but yeah, let's just get started and I'll show you guys my favourites. I've had too much coffee, by the way, I'm really sorry. Also, does everyone else hold their coffee cup like this? Is it weird that I hold it like this, or do other people hold it like this? Please comment and let me know, because I feel a bit weird now. Okay, so I'm going to start with some Greek literature, and the first book / dialogue I'm going to recommend is Plato's The Symposium. So this is one of the first classics that I actually read myself, and it's a very short dialogue as well. It basically follows Plato's account of 7 speeches that were made at a symposium that he attended with Socrates, Alcibiades, where they all talked about the topic of love. So for those that don't know as well, a symposium was kind of a party in classical Athens that only the citizen men attended, and they all just talked about politics and they got drunk. Politics and philosophy and wine. So that was the vibe of a symposium. But yeah, it's a really, really cool dialogue because it all just discusses the topic of love, which is obviously, I'm a romantic, it's one of my favourite topics. So yeah, that really reeled me into ancient classics and I could not recommend this enough. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Now I'll talk about Daphnis' Longus and Chloe. So this is another Greek novel actually, and there's only about 6 Greek novels that survive, I think. So this is actually really special. And it's a very, very short novel, and it's just a really beautiful kind of coming of age book that focuses on the relationship between Daphnis and Chloe. They're very young, it's like 15 and 13, and how they express their love to each other and how they learn to express their love to each other. The background as well of it is that they're shepherds, they grow up in like a very humble agricultural background, so it's really interesting to see that side of Greece, because I think in a lot of books there's obviously the massive focus on Greek mythology. It's Athens, it's this massive power base, whereas this is much different to that because it's this very small like little village just in the countryside in Greece. So it's a really different kind of perspective to read from about the ancient world. Now I'm going to discuss, if I can find my other set, there it is. I'm going to discuss Euripides, and this kind of brings me on to a genre that I think is perfect for beginners of the ancient classics, and that is reading tragedy and reading plays. So here I've got the collection of the Bacchae and other plays, Trojan Women and other plays, and then Medea and other plays, all by Euripides. I think I've got another collection, but these kind of include my favourites. Yeah, I just think these are amazing plays to read if you are new. I think because Attic tragedy is such a interesting thing to read about. I just finished a book as well on tragedy by Simon Critchley, so I'd also recommend that if you want like a general overview as well as the philosophy of tragedy as well combined into that. Also really good. But yeah, I just think tragedy is such an incredible phenomenon. I just think, yeah, tragedy is such an awesome, really, really interesting genre to read, especially Attic tragedy, obviously, because that's kind of where it was created and where it blossomed. And Euripides is obviously the first person I'll kind of recommend to you for that, because he has got the most extant surviving plays out of the tragedians. There are kind of like the three main ones, obviously, which is Euripides, Sophocles, and Aeschylus. I've also got Sophocles that I'm going to recommend to you guys in a second as well. Medea is probably one of my favourites from Euripides, because she's just a really, really strong, empowered female who obviously was really, really wronged by Jason. So yeah, this kind of, I think another reason why I love tragedy is because it follows off a lot of Greek mythology. So it's also really interesting to read from that perspective. One thing I really, really love about Medea, obviously she kind of went a bit crazy and killed her kids. Oh, is that a spoiler? I don't know. Sorry if that is a spoiler. But I just love how she kind of said, and Euripides definitely created her as this really, really strong female character, which was so different to that time, because women, obviously, they weren't citizens, they weren't free. So classical Athens was, well, all of Greece and the ancient world really was not the best place to be as a female. However, there is a line in this play, which is where Medea kind of says, childbirth is so much, stronger and more painful than like a battlefield. I'd rather be on like a battlefield than give birth. It was something like that. It's not an actual quote. But I just love kind of to see how that classical inference was used as well in later times, because the suffragettes used that as one of their mottos in the suffrage movement to get women's rights. And I just think that's why classics is so incredible and so cool. So yeah, I could not recommend this play enough. It's awesome. I'll quickly talk about Sophocles now as well. So I would say that Euripides is probably my favourite of the Greek tragedian. But then I also really, really love Sophocles as well. So this is probably his most famous works, and it's the kind of Oedipus, the 3 Theban plays. It's not actually a trilogy, because the only surviving trilogy is the Oresteia by Aeschylus, but it's kind of the same themes in the Theban plays. But yeah, this is really cool. I've no doubt you guys probably would have... There's a fly. Ugh. I've no doubt you guys probably would have heard of this as well, because Oedipus is a very well-known kind of mythological character. So again, literally like all of the tragedies are based off like the Trojan War and Greek mythology. So it's very informative for that reason as well. And then I've actually got another Sophocles collection, which I've not got with me, that's at home. And that's his Electra. What else has got it? It's got Women of Trachis, Ajax, and Philoctetes in that one. Women of Trachis is, I think, my absolute favourite play of all time, along with Medea. So I would definitely recommend that one to you guys as well. Next, I'll quickly talk about Aristophanes, because, for example, if you're not a massive fan of tragedy, and that's completely fair, then I would also recommend a different genre of plays, which is Aristophanes' comedies. You've also got people like Menander as well, but I've not read much of his work yet, so that's why I'm kind of just recommending Aristophanes to you guys, because I've read a lot of his work and I know that he's really good. A play in particular that I'd recommend is Lysistrata. It's just hilarious. It's like these women of Athens throw a sex strike because the men aren't handling the war very well. So it's awesome. But yeah, Aristophanes, he is definitely a playwright who includes a lot of political references in his works. He talks about Socrates, for example, in this as well, but not in a very good light. These were kind of all, well, some of them are mostly written during the Peloponnesian War as well, which was the war between Athens and Sparta. So you definitely get a lot of inferences in that. This brings me to my last couple of Greek recommendations, and these are all the ones attributed to Homer. So I've got the Iliad, I've got the Odyssey translation by Emily Wilson, and then I've also got the Homeric hymns. Honestly, the Homeric hymns is just like one of my absolute favourite classics of all time. It's just written so poetically, kind of about Greek mythology. And yeah, the hymns are just, I honestly cannot explain to you guys how well written and how beautiful the verses are. Yeah, the hymn to Aphrodite as well is just gorgeous. I think that's hymn 5. It's just gorgeous. So I couldn't recommend this enough, just for very beautiful writing, and especially like a more of an insight into Greek mythology and society as opposed to history and politics. Yeah, then I've got the Iliad and the Odyssey. I feel like I can't not include them because they're obviously the foundation texts of like ancient Greece. I've not actually read these all the way through. weirdly. As a classics student, that's really awful. I'm planning on doing it this year, but I don't know. I feel like I'm more drawn to other texts, for example, ones that I don't know a lot about, because I feel like these are very well-known stories at this point. But I would definitely recommend to you this edition of the Odyssey by Emily Wilson there if you are, like me, going to read it kind of for the first time, because on Bookstagram and all my friends over there have all recommended this edition as being just the absolute best Odyssey edition, and it's also the first that was published and translated by a woman. So yeah, go support her. She's incredible. Go support her. And lastly, this brings me to my two Roman literature texts. Don't know why I said it like that. I feel bad that I've not got more Roman literature texts that I want to recommend, but what can I say? It's Greek for me. It's Greek for me. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to recommend is Ovid's Heroides. I think Ovid in general as a writer is incredible. So I would recommend kind of all of his works. He's got Fasti, Metamorphoses, the love poems / erotic poems. There's lots of different titles for that one. But yeah, this one in particular I'm drawn to more because he kind of writes from like a female perspective of the women in Greek mythology that were wronged by their partners. It's like Medea to Jason, for example. I also think there's Penelope to Odysseus, I think that's the first poem in this. But yeah, I just think it's a really incredible piece, especially on the topic of female empowerment. You know, it's these women that were completely wronged by their partners, and they're writing these letters to them explaining that and their grief and their anger. So I just think it's quite powerful in that sense, kind of the acknowledgement, maybe on Ovid's behalf, obviously it's just a bit of an analysis now, maybe an acknowledgement on Ovid's behalf that these women were treated badly. It's a very strong point for him to maybe have had, especially in that period. Obviously, as I said before, women, they were not treated well at all. So I think if he himself, Ovid, as the author, did have that opinion that, you know, the women were wronged, then I think that's a really rare but obviously nice opinion to have on his part. And that makes him a more interesting author, I think, as he kind of believed more in women's rights. Same as Euripides, obviously. I think he definitely painted Jason as a horrific character, which he was. He was an awful person. So I think you get these very rare glimpses of these male authors, obviously, because the majority, like, of all of these authors are male, apart from, I suppose, Sappho. But yeah, you just get this very rare glimpse into how the men could potentially perceive male actions, which, you know, have been so normalised in that society as being wrong against the female. So I think that's quite interesting, and that'll be, I think I want to maybe analyse this definitely more. I am reading it for the Heroides. I am reading it for the Heroides read along in January, which is hosted by at Reading Ancient Classics over on Bookstagram. So yeah, there's still time to join it if you want to, and that'll be really interesting for us all to discuss our thoughts on it in more detail, especially because I don't want to make this video like an hour long by just discussing kind of gender in the ancient world, but I definitely could. So okay, now I'm also going to discuss a book that I've actually not got here with me, but it is a piece of philosophy, and it's by Marcus Aurelius, and it's called Meditations. So it was written in the, I think, 2nd century AD, and he's the only Roman emperor to be a philosopher as well. So it's a compilation of his kind of philosophical thoughts, but they were never actually meant to be exposed to the public. And I think that's what makes them so intimate, personal, and so interesting to read, because they really are such interesting, miscellaneous thoughts. So yeah, I really want to recommend that one to you guys, but I left it at home because I read it over the holidays and I didn't need to bring it back up here to uni with me. And then that brings me to my last Roman literature recommendation, which is one of my favourites again, and that's Catullus, the complete poems. So last semester for university, I wrote an essay based on this collection, and it was all focused on the character of Lesbia in these poems, and I think it's so interesting to see how Catullus kind of infers Sappho, and he infers potentially Clodia as being this in this intriguing, you know, Lesbia figure. And I just absolutely love the way that these poems are written. Obviously, it's not all love poems. There are a lot of general poems in there as well about his relationships with other people. For example, Juvenal, who's this young man. But the lesbian poems are definitely the ones that attract me the most to this collection. They're just written so incredibly beautifully, and for love poems it's beautiful. Some of them are written in the Sapphic verse as well, so that's really beautiful to see how the poetry was kind of passed down from Sappho to Catullus, which is obviously like 500 years later, how she's still kind of a muse. He did call Sappho as well in this poem like a muse to him, so that's really interesting to see. But yeah, I really love this, and I would 100% recommend it to you guys. And I'm finished. That brings me to the end of my video on my favourite ancient classics that are also very accessible to you guys. I just love all these books so much, and yeah, if you read them or if you have read them, please leave a comment down below and we can all discuss it. If not, I hope this has been really helpful to you guys who are only just starting with ancient classics, and now you've got a better idea of maybe what to read. I was also thinking as well of starting to film some study with me videos, so if that's something that you would like to see, then please comment down below, because obviously if a lot of you want to see it, then I'll make the videos, but if not, then I probably just won't. So yeah, I hope you all have a lovely day, and yeah, I'll talk to you all soon.